So this is the chapter number 6, Trend Line and Regression Analysis, page number 108. So you boleh buka buku you lah, page number 108. So trend line and regression analysis is frequently taught in data analysis lah. Selalu kita kalau nak tengok sales ni, kita punya sales daripada tahun 2000 hingga tahun 2022, right, meningkat ke menurun. So kita akan tengok trend line lah. And then when we want to do a projection, right, in future, so we will do a regression analysis. But in this subject, we only focus on linear regression analysis, right? So kita tengok linear regression analysis saja. Kita tak tengok logistic regression, tak tengok lain-lain type of regression, tak tengok. Kita just tengok the basic one, the most common regression analysis which is linear regression analysis, right? So now, modeling relationship and examining trend in data. So predictive analytics is executed by processing historical data. So means that untuk projection data, kita bukan bomo, kita based on the past data. When we have data, then we can do a projection, right? So to do a projection, you need to have historical data lah, means the past data. Past, kalau macam nak tengok sales, nak project sales for future, and then kita kena ada data yang kita collect sebelum inilah, right, to forecast what will happen in future. So the example of predictive modeling, so we have a lot of linear regression. Yang saya cakap tadi, kita hanya fokus pada linear regression, right? So dia ada banyak lagi logarithmic function, polynomial function, power function, exponential function. Semua ni advanced regression techniques, but the formula I think is quite common. So kalau you student SPM pun dah tahu apa itu formula y equal to a plus bx. If you still remember in subject mathematics, mathematics modern, right? So we have equation y equal to mx plus c, right? Y equal to mx plus c. So benda yang sama, we just change the notation lah, but the interpretation are same. So m kita tahu daripada SPM dulu, this is what we call as slope, right? And this is what we call as intercept. This is y-intercept lah, y-intercept. So benda yang sama, so kita akan pakai the same formula, y equal to a plus bx. So this is going to be a linear function that used to assess whether there is an increase or decrease trend in the range of x lah. So I can explain what is the definition for x and y, right? So kita akan tengok nanti apa maksud y and x. So yang lain-lain function kita akan ignore, but you need to understand there is this function, all others function ni exist lah. Kita ada logarithmic function, right? So dia akan macam ni ataupun macam ni, lebih kurang, right? So satu saja. And then we have a polynomial function, right? So we're going to have look like parabola shape, polynomial shape. And then we have a power function, right? And then we have exponential function as well, right? So now, first topic that we're going to look at is correlation, right? So kita tengok sini, topik yang kita nak tengok adalah trend line and regression analysis. So trend line is to understand the trend of the data, whether it is increasing or decreasing, right? So kalau dia dapat macam ni, means there are no trend at all lah. Kalau macam ni, no trend at all. So this is increasing. Is increasing trend. This is a decreasing trend, right? So first part yang kita tengok adalah correlation analysis. So correlation analysis is a statistical technique used to measure relationship, right, and strength of the relationship, right, between two variables, right, commonly known as independent variable and dependent variable. So we have two variables here. The purpose of correlation analysis is to measure the relationship. Right, kita nak tengok apa relationship between two variable. For example, heart disease and smoking. So, is there any relationship between heart disease and smoking? Kalau kita kata dia ada, apa relationship dia? Is there a positive relationship or negative relationship? If positive relationship, the more you smoke the cigarette, the high chances to get heart disease. If a negative relationship, terbalik lah. The more cigarette you smoke, the lower chance of getting heart disease. Right? So dia ada dua variable, which is independent variable. So dalam graph, right? So kita kena tengok graph dulu. So are you familiar with the graph, right? So kita ada y-axis, this is a y-axis, and this is x-axis. Right? Dalam graph, remember this one. So y-axis is for dependent variable. X-axis is for independent variable. Right? So apa itu independent variable, apa itu dependent variable? So dependent variable is the variable that depend on others variable. Right? Dependent variable is the variable that depend on other variable. Right? For example, heart disease. Heart disease, the chance of getting heart disease will depend on the number of cigarette you smoke, the number of cholesterol, the number of waist, right? The number of weight, right? Itu dia depend. Dia tak akan terjadi dengan sendiri. Dia akan depend kepada beberapa faktor, right? Independent variable does not depend on any variable. Means smoking, right? Number of cholesterol, right? Cholesterol level, lagi number of hour exercise, right? Itu semua dependent variable. Dia tak depend on others variable. Dia stand alone, right? So that is the definition between dependent variable and independent variable. So take note, this is very important. This is very fundamental. Dalam test nanti masuk. Right? You need to differentiate what is dependent variable and what is independent variable. Right? So for example, I bagi dekat you example, let's say CGPA and number of hours study. Right? CGPA depend on number of hours study, or a number of hours study depend on CGPA. Can you answer for me? Norma. CGPA depend on number of hours study, or number of hours study depend on CGPA?
Pardon, Doktor?
CGPA depend on number of hours study, or number of hours study depend on CGPA?
Depends on hours.
Right. CGPA is depending on number of study hours, kan?
Yeah.
So CGPA is the dependent variable.
Dependent variable.
Right. Independent variable is number of study hours. So always remember, y-axis dekat sini, di sebelah kiri, x-axis dekat bawah di sebelah kanan. Right. So jangan terbalik. Dalam kelas, nampak student, banyak sudah I dah tengok. Dalam kelas, they understand y is on the left, x is dekat bawah. Tapi bila final exam or test, dia terbalik. Dia suka hati, dia tukar. So to identify the identification of dependent variable and independent variable is very crucial if you want to do correlation analysis and regression analysis. Kalau salah letak, salah result, salah interpretation. And then again, correlation is we want to know the relationship. Right? We want to know the relationship and the strength of relationship. So there are two methods. Right? So nanti I sebut method. So example dulu. Sebelum example of correlation analysis. So in many research, business situation, manager often want to seek relationship between sales and profit. They want to know whether the sales in profit is positively correlated or negatively correlated. Selalunya apa yang dia nak adalah positively correlated lah. So dia mesti nak tinggi macam ni, dia mesti menaik macam ni. So kalau negatively correlated, maksudnya ada problem lah dalam bisnes dia, right? So between advertising expenditure and sales, so sama ada lagi banyak dia spend dalam expenditure, so adakah sales dia meningkat. So again dia mesti nak positively correlated lah. Kalau negative, problem. So similarly, if you want you have a production cost and production unit, then we would say that production cost will depend on the production unit. So this is the identification of dependent and independent variable lah. So very important. So you need to critically identify what is dependent variable and what is independent variable, right? So now let's look at the method to determine correlation. So there are three methods available to determine correlation. First, correlation ni maksudnya relationship lah. We want to know the relationship of two variable. And before I move further, so kita tengok the definition dulu of correlation. It's a statistical technique used to measure relationship. So again, relationship and the strength of relationship. Berapa kuat relationship tu? So we know there is a relationship between heart disease and number of cigarette smoke, right? So how strong the relationship? It is very strong or moderate. So kita nak measure. Kalau dia moderate, so it's not a very important variable or factor, right? Between two variable. So two variable ni mesti quantitative variable. Mesti quantitative variable. So if you have a mix of quantitative and qualitative, we can also do measure the relationship, but it requires different techniques, right? Okay.
Cuma suara macam slow sikit lah.
Okay. So we have three methods to measure correlation. The first method is by using scatter diagram. Scatter diagram is a graphical method lah. So kita akan measure menggunakan graph. This is Y and this is X. So let's say this is the data. So kita akan dapat the point data macam ni. So this is a scatter diagram, right? So another example of scatter diagram. Let's say I buat macam satu lagi, right? This is Y and this is X. Let's say we have this kind of data, right? So this is also a scatter diagram, right? Benda yang sama, kita just tabulate the data from into the graph, right? Let's say kita dapat macam ni, right? Satu point, dia turun pula ke bawah. This is also a scatter diagram. So scatter diagram bentuk dia lebih kurang macam ni lah. So we going to tabulate the data into a graph. So we need to have two quantitative variable, right? So we need to have two quantitative variable. So the variable of dependent variable should be on y-axis. The independent variable should be on x-axis. So kalau kita dapat macam ni, kita nampak dia punya trend dia menaik kan? So this is what we call positive correlation. Right? Kalau dia trend dia menurun macam ni, right? So nampak dia decreasing from left to right, right? So this is what we call negative correlation, right? So kalau kita nampak dia macam ni, dia first part dia naik, right? The second part dia turun, right? So there is a relationship, there is a trend. So tapi kita panggil ni there are no linear correlation. So remember kita hanya fokus on linear correlation. So This is increasing trend, decreasing trend. This is a polynomial, kan? So there are no linear correlation. Sama juga dengan satu lagi graph, right? Let's say y, x. So dia bentuk macam ni. Dia straight saja, right? Ataupun dia mencapar macam ni. Dia buat macam bulatan lah, right? So kalau kita nampak dekat sini, dia macam bentuk straight, right? Ataupun dalam bentuk bulatan macam ni. Right, so this kita boleh kata ini adalah no correlation. Right, tidak ada correlation at all lah. Okay, boleh faham? Class, please respond sebab I tak berapa sure my internet connection is good or not.
Nampak. Ya, Doktor.
Okay. Respon kalau tak ni letak dalam WhatsApp so I tak tahu sebab I punya gambar ni tak keluar. Okay. Right, boleh faham the first part is scatter diagram. We just want to know there is whether there is a correlation or no correlation. So dalam scatter diagram ni dia hanya bagi kat kita dia bagi tahu kat kita whether these two variable have correlation or no correlation. Right? Means the correlation that we want to measure here is a linear correlation lah. This is a positive linear correlation, negative linear correlation. So apa maksud dekat sini? Let's say this is a positive correlation. Let's say Y is a heart disease, risk of getting heart disease. X is the number of cigarettes smoked. So if the number of cigarette smoke increase, right, the number of risk of getting heart disease also increase. So we can conclude that there is a risk of kita boleh kata kat sini lagi banyak kita hisap rokok, lagi tinggi risk untuk getting heart disease. So what happened on the left right hand side ni, sebelah nombor 2 ni, when the more you smoke the cigarette, right, the risk of getting heart disease is lower, right? So conclusion dia isaplah rokok, right? Macam ni. So maksudnya lagi banyak you isap rokok, lagi susah you nak dapat heart disease. Kalau you dapat result macam ni susah lah. Right? So that's why you need to understand how to interpret the data. Right. So this is example of scatter diagram. So we can see the correlation, whether it's a positive correlation or negative correlation. But in scatter diagram, it does not tell us how strong the correlation. So dia tak bagi tahu kat kita, this is a very strong correlation or weak correlation or moderate correlation. So they just bagi dekat kita, there is a correlation between X and Y. But so if you want to know the strength of correlation, so we can use Pearson product moment coefficient of correlation. So this is only for quantitative variable, means that X and Y is a quantitative variable lah. Right? Okay. So in Pearson product moment correlation, a coefficient of correlation, we're going to measure the correlation by R value. Right? This is the R is the symbol for correlation. Pearson product moment coefficient of correlation. Right? So now, dan satu lagi kita ada Spearman rank coefficient of correlation, RS. This is normally kita tak letak RS lah, kita letak rho. Right? The pronoun is rho. Right? So this is for qualitative and quantitative variable, right? But we're not going to focus detail on Spearman rank coefficient of correlation, but you need to know there is a method to measure correlation between qualitative and quantitative, named as Spearman rank coefficient of correlation, right? So the value of R and rho is between 0 and 1. The value of R and rho is always between 0 and 1. It cannot exceed 1, it cannot lower than 1. Right? So now kita tengok the classification of the R value. So the R value will range from, not 0 to 1, it's from -1 to 1. So 0 to 1 is just an indicator lah, right? So 0 to 1 is an indicator to measure the perfect, strong, moderate, and weak and no linear correlation. So it can also be until -1. So negative means negative correlation lah. So kita tengok the definition dekat sini. So when interpreting the value of correlation, the strength and direction, positive and negative of the correlation must be stated. So the guideline of the strength, kalau R is equal to 1, means that it's a perfect correlation. So perfect correlation selalunya dalam scatter diagram, you akan dapat macam ni lah. So dia dalam bentuk satu line saja, tapi dalam bentuk data, tapi dalam satu line lah. So ini is R equal to -1. Ini R equal to 1. So -1 maksudnya dia still perfect correlation, but it's a negative perfect linear correlation. So this is a negative perfect linear correlation, right? And this one should be positive perfect linear correlation, right? So remember, kat sini I ignore dulu the negative sign and positive sign. So the negative value, so if R is negative value, so means that it has negative correlation, right? So this is number 1. Number 2, we tulis R is positive value, so then it has positive correlation, right? Boleh faham setakat ni? So now if R is between 0.8 and 0.99, so we can indicate it has a strong correlation. If R is between 0.5 and 0.79, is having a moderate correlation. If R is between 0 and 0.49, 0 is not inclusive, right? It has a weak correlation. If R is equal to 0, there are no linear correlation. Boleh faham? There are no linear correlation. Boleh? I hope you understand. Dalam buku ada tak? Dalam buku surat berapa? Dalam buku dia tak bagi tahu. Right, so you need to capture this slide ataupun nanti I akan upload my slide. But the nice is you need to capture the slide dulu lah. Make sure you understand before we move further. Boleh? Right. Ada soalan setakat ni? Right. So kita tengok example of strength of correlation. So kalau kita tengok dekat sini, R is equal to 0 means that there are no linear relationship between X and Y. Right. If R is equal to 1, there is a perfect positive linear relationship between X and Y. So kalau kita tengok dekat sini, R is a positive value, right? Means perfect positive. If R is negative value, -1 is a perfect negative linear relationship. So now kita tengok dekat sini, R is equal to 0.83, there is a strong positive linear relationship between X and Y. Number 4, R is equal to -0.61, right? So there is a moderate relationship. So let me, okay. There is a moderate negative linear relationship. Sebab dia ada negative, right? If R is equal to -0.31, there is a weak negative linear relationship. Sekejap ya. So scatter diagram, is a graph that show relationship between independent variable and dependent variables, right? It's also known as a scatter plot or scatter diagram. By drawing a scatter diagram, we can determine the type of correlation between independent variable and dependent variable lah. Right, so this is example of scatter diagram. Tadi I dah tunjuk sikit. Kalau kita nampak macam ni, can you tell? This is a strong positive linear correlation. Kalau kita tengok ni, data dia nampak straight. Kita boleh bagi tahu dia dalam satu bentuk trend yang menaik. Right, so this is a strong positive correlation. Satu lagi dia bentuk menurun from left to right. Right, so is a strong negative correlation. Kalau kita tengok dekat sini, dia dalam bentuk satu line macam ni. Right, dia straight line or dia dalam bentuk bulat. There are no correlation. Satu lagi dia menurun. Dia menaik juga, tapi kalau kita tengok the line ni, dia sedikit macam mencapar macam ni. Right? So this is a weak positive correlation. Right? So sama juga dengan sini, dia macam mencapar sikit lah. Right? So this is also weak negative correlation. Yang tadi I dah bagi tahu, the first part dia menaik, right? The second part dia menurun, right? So this is a no linear correlation. Now there is a correlation. Ini ada correlation, right? But it is not linear correlation, right? It is not a linear correlation. Okay, boleh faham Right. So the Pearson product moment coefficient of correlation. So this coefficient correlation measure relationship between two variables, and also it gives us the strength or degree of correlation. Right. So the strength of correlation can be either perfectly correlated, strongly correlated, or moderately correlated, or weakly correlated. Ataupun kita boleh ada no correlation at all. So this is the formula to calculate the Pearson product moment coefficient of correlation. But basically, we don't need to know the formula lah, because we're going to use Excel. Right? But you need to know the concept of R. Right? Tadi I dah bagi tahu dekat sini. So if R is equal to 1, is a perfect between 0 to 8.0 0.8 until 0.99 is classified as a strong correlation. But we can differentiate the strength, the correlation between using the sign value lah, negative sign or positive sign. So kalau negative is a negative correlation, right? So modeling a simple price demand function. So sebelum kita masuk, you want 5-minute rest or you want me to continue terus? You boleh faham ke? Hello?
Faham, Doktor?
Alright, continue. You want me to continue? Alright.
Okay, Doktor.
So, to continue, kita tengok dekat dataset. You pergi ke dataset yang I bagi, week number 11. Week number 11, I bagi dataset, correlation. Ada dua dataset dekat sini. Please download these two. And then kita akan buka Sunshine Private Limited. Right. So, you buka Sunshine Private Limited. So, dekat sini dia kata, to model a price demand function, a hypothetical example is used, such as Sunshine Private Limited, SPL, is a headscarf company in Malaysia. SPL has 20 branch in the Asian region. So, we want to find the trend for sale and selling price. Trend for sales and selling price. So this is the number of branch, right? 1 until 20. So semua dah buka?
Okay.
Okay kan?
Dah, Doktor.
Kejap Kejap, I need to find my charger kejap. Okay. First, kita tengok data set yang kita ada dulu, right? So we have the first column, we have branch, and we have sales, advertising expenditure, selling price, and research and development expenditure. So first step, kita nak measure sales on advertising expenditure, selling price, and R&D expenditure lah. Right, so sales would be your dependent variable. Right, always remember sales going to be your dependent variable. Advertising expenditure, selling price, and research and development expenditure going to be your independent variable. Right, so now first step, kita kena buang variable line nodes. We understand the first column ni, sales ni, is multiplied with 1,000 scarf. This is multiplied with 1,000 ringgit. This is a dollar per scarf, and then this is multiplied with 1,000 ringgit lah. So we need to understand this one and take note dekat tempat lain lah. Right, ataupun kita boleh copy this one and take note dekat sini atau letak kat sini lah. Right, so kita faham lah dia punya. Maybe I buang this dulu. Yeah. Copy and I paste dekat sini. Right. So I paste dekat sini dulu. So sebab apa yang I nak buat dekat sini adalah I nak buang these two row ni. Right. So bila nak buat analysis, kita kena make sure our data is clean with others notes ataupun discussion, apa-apa yang notes kita letak kat sini mesti clear. So dekat sini I nak buang. So I highlight these two row, I remove, delete. Right. So I tinggal dekat sini the information dekat sini I biarlah. So I know this sales is a Y variable. Advertising expenditure multiplied with 1,000 ringgit. Selling price is a per scarf. And R&D expenditure is multiplied 1,000 ringgit lah. Right? So now the question the question asks us to find the trend for sales and selling price. Right? Sales and selling price. So first step is we just highlight this one lah. Very simple. I highlight sales and selling price, and we go to insert and click on this insert ni. Kita pergi dekat bahagian chart ni kan, and kita tengok dekat chart ni, kita cari scatter diagram. Kita nampak bentuk scatter dekat sini kan, insert scatter X and Y or bubble chart lah. So dia ada banyak scatter diagram. So you pilih in the first one. This is a simple scatter diagram. Boleh? So dia akan bagi kita this one lah. Boleh? Are you following me?
Boleh, Doktor.
Alright. So kita dah dapat scatter diagram. But this scatter diagram is not looking nice lah. Dia tak nampak cantik. Right? Sebab kalau kita tengok dekat sini, di sebelah Y-axis ni dia tak bagi tahu apa dia punya label selling sales. Dekat X-axis ni pun dia tak bagi tahu apa dia punya label. So dalam graphing or visualization techniques, we need to tell the reader X-axis ni represent apa, Y-axis ni represent apa. Mesti letak label. Kalau letak label, it will be no meaning visualization lah. Kita tak tahu apa maksud 0 to 20 ni apa dia represent. 0 to 250 ni represent apa. So to do that, kita pergi ke chart design and quick layout. Dekat sini dia ada banyak lah, right? So dia ada banyak layout, right? So maybe we can take this one or the last one, the number 6 punya, layout 9, right? Layout 9 pun okay juga, but I think I will skip that one first, right? Atau kalau nak cepat pun baguslah, layout 9 pun okay. So nak cepat kan nak lambat? Mesti nak cepat kan? So kita ambil layout 9 lah. Ataupun nak ambil layout 1 pun okay juga, kita ambil layout 9. So layout 9 ni, kalau you perhatikan, we have axis title on y axis, axis title for x axis, and then dekat sini besarkan sikit, right? So dia beritahu dekat sini the line dekat sini adalah linear line, and then this is a selling price, right? So I think for this purpose for this purpose bolehlah kita I tak kisah pun. Tapi I nak tunjuk you step by step. Tapi you boleh ambil step layout 1 pun boleh. Ambil layout 1 lah. Kita tengok ini regression line tu I tak ajar lagi kan. So layout 1 right? Kita ambil layout number 1, right? So dia akan bagi dekat sini chart title, legend, horizontal axis title, vertical axis title, horizontal axis, and so on lah. So dekat sini kita boleh delete lah selling price ni. Tak nak lah, dia punya indicator tak nak. So y axis title, we just double click dekat sini, right? And then you tulis sini sales, right? And then for x axis title, you double click, you tulis selling price. And the title should be telling what is the chart type. So kita mesti ada scatter diagram. So mesti start dengan chart type. Kita punya title, scatter diagram showing relationship between sales and selling price. So nampak tak elemen yang letak dalam chart title? First part is your diagram type, right? So kita menggunakan scatter diagram. So I start with a scatter diagram showing a relationship. Apa objektif kita? Kita nak tengok relationship, the trend, ataupun relationship, or you boleh replace dengan trend lah, between apa variable yang kita guna? Sales and selling price. So the first mention is our dependent variable, the second mention is for independent variable, right? So now kita nampak macam ni, still nampak chart ni tak cantik, right? It's hard to read, right? Sebab apa? Kita tengok dekat sini, the first 100 point ni, 0 to 100 ni adalah kosong, right? So kita nak remove the empty space dekat sini. Kita tak sebab dia ada hujung ni, dia tak fully utilize the graph. We need to remove the empty space. So we just highlight dekat sini, right? Pergi dekat sini. Bila you highlight ni, dia akan keluar format as is. Kalau tak keluar pun, you boleh right click format as is lah, right? So dekat sini bound, you nampak ni dia starting from 0 to 250, right? So we going to start from, let's say 120, right, to 250. So dia akan nampak dekat sini, dia akan adjust you punya graph. Are you with me? Right, boleh?
Yes.
Alright, good. So sama juga dengan y-axis is starting from 0 to 20, but the fully utilized, kita starting from 12 ni baru fully utilized kan, 12 until 20 baru kita nampak dia ada graph. Bawah pada 12 ni kosong. So you just starting from 12 lah, baru you akan nampak the pattern, fully utilize the graph. So when you construct a graph, make sure dia memenuhi semua ruang. Okay, that is a criteria for a good graph lah. So kalau kita nampak dekat sini, kita boleh kata apa ni? Ni apa trend dia? Trend dia menurun kan? It's a decreasing trend. right? Dia menurun from left to right. So in correlation kita boleh kata apa? There is a negative correlation between sales and selling price. Maksudnya when selling price is increased, number of sales or is decreased. When the selling price is at lower point, right? Is lower, the sales are increased. Right? The best sales is at 106 lah dekat sini ya. Kita kena tengok berapa dia punya nilai. Right? So dekat sini kita boleh highlight semua, right? Right, highlight semua by click on the point, okay? And then you right click, kita nak letak trend line. Kita nak letak trend line. You nampak apa yang buat? I just click, make sure the point are selected, and then I right click, I add trend line. So trend line dekat sini dia ada banyak lah. Macam tadi kita tengok, dia ada exponential, linear, logarithm, polynomial, power and moving average. But we going to focus on linear lah. So kita letak linear dekat sini. So you boleh change the color if you like. Shape outline, let's say color merah, right? So I want a straight line without dash, right? So I clearly can see there is a decreasing trend, and I can say that there is a negative correlation between sales and selling price. So trend ni mana dia dapat? Trend ni dia buat based on linear regression lah, regression yang kita akan tengok sekejap lagi. So this is how to construct scatter diagram using to find correlation between X and Y. So are you clear with this part? And of course you boleh adjust lain-lain lah. Let's say I tak nak line dekat dalam ni, I boleh buang. You boleh play around with the function of properties available dekat dalam Excel ni, and you can make a very beautiful graph lah, right? So say I suka Time New Roman, so make it Time New Roman. Right? Okay? Boleh? Are you okay? Please respond.
Okay, doktor.
Alright.
Doktor?
Yeah.
Let's say kalau kita, ini scatter plot kan? Kalau kita guna bar chart dan kita insert linear, adakah dia dipanggil sebagai correlation juga?
Tak. Kalau nak cari correlation, mesti menggunakan scatter diagram.
Plot.
Baru kita nampak correlation. Sebab bar chart is not for quantitative variable, right? It's for categorical variable, right? So since kita measure two quantitative variable, the best chart is either line chart or scatter diagram lah. Okay, right? So let's move to correlation of determination. Right. So correlation of determination, right? Dekat sini dia tak bagi tahu dekat kita what is the R value, right? The Pearson product moment correlation dia tak bagi tahu. So what we can do is we just highlight dekat line ni. Nampak? I highlight dekat line, bukan highlight dekat point. Highlight dekat line. So I click format trend line. Right, format trend line. So you nampak dekat sini belah kanan ni ada format trend line. So dekat bawah sekali, you nampak tak dia tulis display R square value on chart. So you click on display R value, square value. So you nampak dekat sini dia keluar R square value. Right. So R square is 0.6484 kan. I tukar dulu. Make it bigger sikit. Right, and I want to change it to color, different color lah. Right. So dia kata dekat sini R square is 0.684. So this is not Pearson product moment. This is not our Pearson product moment lah. So this is basically R square. To get R is Pearson product moment. Pearson product moment coefficient of correlation. Right, to get R, we just need to square the R square. So find the square root of R square. So R should be equal to the square root of R square. It should be equal to the square root of 0.684. So kalau you calculate, so you akan dapat berapa? SQRT 0.684. So the value of correlation is 0.82, right? But if you compare with the graph, it shows that it has a negative linear correlation. So since we are calculating the Pearson from R square, right? Remember, so they always give us a positive value. So the actual R should be equal to negative 0.8270. So we can say that there is a strong negative correlation, negative linear correlation between sales and selling price. Boleh faham? Okay, so to get the R value, we just right click dekat sini, dekat trend line ni, right? Trend line ni, I right click, I click on format trend line, and I display R square on the value chart kan. So you can keluar R square. So R square is the square of the R value, right? So we need to taking a square root of R squared. So kita akan dapat 0.82. So it always give us a positive value because it's from a square kan. So but we need to compare with the line chart. The scatter diagram, it shows that it has negative correlation, so it should be a negative value lah. So negative correlation letak negative, so it should be negative 0.8270, right? So okay, so means that there is a strong negative linear correlation between sales and selling price. So now kita tengok apa itu coefficient of determination. Coefficient of determination is a measure the proportion of variation in Y variable that can be explained by the variation in X variable. The coefficient of determination is given by R2 lah, R square. This is basically R square, the capital R. So tengok balik dalam buku dia tulis apa? Dalam buku supposed to be R square lah, capital R square, right? So if the value of coefficient of product moment coefficient correlation is R equal to 0.995, so the R square should be 0.9025, means that we square 0.95 should be 0.925. This means that 95% of the variation in Y variable can be explained by the variation in X variable. It means that dekat sini kita ada apa? Dekat sini we have the R square is equal to 0.684. Right? It means that 68.4% of the total variation in Y, our Y is sales, is explained by our X variable selling price. Right? So the balance is 100 minus 68.4. 100 minus 68.4. The balance is 31% kan? 31% ni mana pi? 31.6%, right, is explained by other variable that is not in the model. Okay, boleh faham? Too complicated or can understand? I need response. You know, before I further go to linear regression. Linear regression very a bit messy sikit nak faham. Boleh faham? Do you understand? I need response. Boleh Alright, good. So
Sikit-sikit lah.
sikit-sikit So this is very simple. The most simplest part in our chapter number 6. Right? So kita akan masuk the complicated part, which is linear regression. So before we go to the simple linear regression, can we take a 5-minute rest? So now it's 11:50. We will meet again at 11:50. Bila kita dah tahu Pearson moment correlation, and kita dah tahu juga the trend line is decreasing, negative correlation. Then let's say we want to predict in future what is going to be the 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 sales amount of sales if the selling price is equal to 20, right? Kalau kita increase the selling price equal to 20, kat sini 222. Let's say kita nak increase selling price equal to 240, right? 240, dekat sini I think kita salah sikit lah. Kalau kita tengok dekat sini, I think kita terbalik dekat sini. The selling price sepatutnya dekat sini, tapi kita buat terbalik. Kalau kita tengok the data kan, kalau kita tengok data dekat sini, selling price sepatutnya the value of 100 sampai 240 ni sepatutnya dekat sales kan. Selling price sepatutnya dekat bawah ni. Kalau kita buat dengan Excel, kena berhati-hati lah. So apa yang kita boleh buat dekat sini adalah kita guna form chart design. Kita highlight the chart, we go to chart design and we switch row and column. So dia akan dapat macam ni lah. Alright, I think we select data lah, senang. Kita select data. I think something wrong here. Right, ini sepatutnya represent switch row and column. This one is supposed to represent kejap, I think select data. Okay. Dekat sini kan kita tekan edit, right? Kita pergi sekali lagi dekat sini. Sebelum kita switch row and column kan, kita tekan select data and then kita tekan edit kan. So X value supposed to be selling price lah, right? X value selling price, Y value supposed to be sales, right? And then click OK and click OK. Now dekat sini kita highlight dekat sini. So right click tekan format exist, right? So tadi kita letak from 120 to 240 kan, that's why kita dapat kosong. So kita letak let's say kosong to 20. So dia akan nampak ni lah, baru nampak the correct one. And then kita letak daripada sini letak 12 lah, 12 ke 20, right? And then dekat sini untuk y axis kita letak from 120 to 240 lah, and then baru kita nampak. And then the R is still same lah, benda yang sama, 0.680 lah. Kita tengok, yes, sama. Right, so be careful. Right, my slide pun betul kat sini, right? Be careful on selecting data lah. So tadi I tak check untuk X axis and Y axis. Okay, itu saja. So kita make sure selling price is a correct tabulated data, and sales also correctly tabulated data. Right, now we go to simple linear regression. Right, so simple linear regression is regression analysis is a statistical techniques, right, to estimate the best fitted line to show the relationship between dependent variable and independent variable. The best fit line is also known as regression line. Right, remember, yang ni yang kita belajar ni semua yang dah belajar dalam SPM dulu, Math Modern. Right, and then the regression line is given by regression equation lah. So regression equation y equal to a plus bx. So remember satu lagi function yang kita dalam Math Modern kita belajar dulu, y equal to mx plus c. Benda yang sama. So kalau kita tukar c plus mx, right, dia just tukar c kepada a, m kepada b, right? So m is slope, right? C is your y-intercept. So dekat sini kita pakai menggunakan y equal to a plus bx, or some books kalau you baca in banyak-banyak buku statistik lagi, dia kata y equal to beta naught plus beta 1 x, right? So x1 lah, since kita measure simple linear regression. Simple linear regression, we only have one dependent variable and one independent variable, right? So I hope you understand the concept here. So dalam graph ni, the best fitted line adalah inilah, which is y equal to a plus bx, right? So we want to get this equation, right? So then we can estimate how strong and macam mana nak we can estimate the y value lah, right? So to get the equation, you just click the line ni. Nampak tak I click line ni? And then kalau you tak keluar the format trend line ni, you just right click and click on format trend line. Dekat format trend line ni, you nampak dekat bawah sekali tadi kita check for display R square value. Now, the second last check box, kita nampak display equation on chart. So kita check this one, so dia akan keluar display equation lah. Dia akan keluar equation. Mana equation dah? Dia tak keluar equation pula. Sepatutnya dia akan keluar equation lah. Where is the equation? Oh, maybe I kena buat barulah. Sekejap lagi I tunjuk. Maybe kita tukar sikit dia punya trend line ni. Kalau let's say I select this one, these two, right? I go to insert and I go to this one, click on scatter diagram, and then using the recommend, oh sorry, sorry dekat sini, bila I select this one, so kita tengok ada chart design, kita pergi ke quick layout, kita ambil layout number 9. So layout number 9, so benda yang sama juga. Kalau kita tengok dekat sini, dia punya x axis and y axis tak sama. Select data, edit, what x axis should be this value, y axis should be this value. Right? So kita nampak dekat sini the line, the trend line dekat sini lah. So and then same procedure, kita pergi ke format axis ni, sini axis option. This is from 10 to 20, and then for y axis 120 to 240. And then dia akan bagi kat sini the trend line lah. Kalau kita tak dapat gunakan first layout, you can choose layout number 9 lah. And then right, so I tak suka banyak line dekat sini, so I'm going to delete the line. Right, so maybe this one I can lebihkan sikit. Right, maybe this starting from 12 to 120. Right, so I letak kat bawah lah. Oops, benda yang sama I buat, cuma I letak kat bawah sini yang baru lah. Right, so this is selling price, and this is going to be your sales. Right, and this is scatter diagram showing relationship between sales and selling price. Right, so ini adalah kita punya equation. So kita boleh besarkan sikit equation ni. Right, so this is the equation that represent the trend line. This is the R squared, which is the coefficient of determination. Right, so I think because I dah counting banyak, so dia tak keluar dekat sini kan. So dekat sini dia bagi dekat kita y equal to, this is a bx plus a. Sama konsep dengan mx plus c yang kita pernah tengok kan. So the best way is to reorganize lah this equation to y equal to 353.57 minus 11.312x. Reorganize the equation, so then we can interpret accordingly lah. So 3.3553 is a y-intercept, and this is going to be your slope. Right? Boleh So I hope you understand the procedure to get the trend line and equation from scatter diagram. So now, let's move to the formula. So the formula for calculating B and A is this one, but you don't need to understand or know, because we're going to use Excel to calculate the equation. Right. So now, so simple linear regression using Microsoft Excel. Later on I will show you how to use it. Right. So now, kita tengok macam mana nak buat. This is simple linear regression. Okay. So make sure your data is clean here, right? Tak ada apa-apa notes, right, dekat sini. So remember last class we are using data analysis from the analysis toolpack, right? Remember? So we're going to use the data analysis from analysis toolpack. Click this one, And then you need to find regression. So cari regression dekat sini. Dia nampak ke? Can you respond? Are you in this step or terlepas?
Nampak doktor?
Right, good. And then click OK. Once you cari regression, click OK. Now, kita nampak dekat sini dia ada 2 section dekat sini. Input and output. Ada 2 section input and output option. So for input Y range, so kita select Y is our dependent variable sales. Kita select daripada sales sampai 20. So from B1 until B21, right? Input X range, so kita masukkan range untuk X adalah selling price, right? From D1 until D21. So since we including the labels dekat atas ni, so kita check label, right? And then we also check confidence interval, make sure 95% confidence interval. And then for output option, kita tekan output range, kita nak dia display dekat sini. So kita tekan box untuk display result. Let's say I letak dekat sini lah, display result dekat sini. Dekat F42, right? So next, dekat bawah ni dalam output option ni kita ada residual. And we check residual, bukan standardized residual. And we want residual plots, and normal probability plot, right? Kita nak 3 benda ni, residual plot and normal probability plot, right? Semua dah ikut?
Dah doktor.
Right, good. And then click OK. So dia akan keluar result dekat sini lah, right? So kalau kita tengok mana result, this is a plot yang dia bagi, right? This is also another plot. Right, so let me make it bigger, the plot, so we can see the bigger picture. Right. Okay. Dekat sini kalau kita nampak, right, plot ni sama juga, dia tak fully utilized kan. Kita right click, format as is, let's say from 100 lah, from 100 to 240, right? So kita nampak dia fully utilized sikit lah, ataupun kita boleh letak dia pada 120 to 240, right? Benda yang sama. And then for selling price, kita nak select from 12 to 20. So kita nampak macam ni, residual plot, right? So make sure they fully utilize the graph. Okay. So now dalam Excel ni dia akan bagi 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 table and 2 plot. Right, dia akan bagi 2 plot. Right. Okay. Boleh nampak this one? Okay. So if you are doing with me, you akan nampak dapat benda yang sama. So dekat sini, the first plot they give a summary output, right? Which is multiple R, which is this is our Pearson product moment of correlation. Coefficient of correlation lah. But the value is not true. The sign is not true because we have, if you look at the scatter diagram, it shows as a negative relationship, but the R value is positive. Kita tak boleh rely on the R value, the sign untuk R value ni. Kita kena tengok dengan scatter diagram. So since the scatter diagram shows a negative, so it should be negative 0.82. Right? It means that it's a strong negative linear correlation. And the R squared is the coefficient of determination yang kita dapat tadi. And this is adjusted R squared, standard error observation. This is not, we're not going to interpret this one, but we understand there is a 20 observation. And we have ANOVA table and the regression table, coefficient table. And we also have a residual output and probability output, right? So now, let's look at the slide, right? Interpreting linear regression, multiple R means that this is a Pearson product moment correlation lah, right? So indicating the strength of correlation. But 0.82 is a strong correlation, but it does not tell us the direction of correlation, whether it's a positive or negative relationship, right? So we need to refer back to the scatter diagram to show to know whether it's a positive relationship or negative relationship. And then we also have R squared is a coefficient of determination. So 0.68 means that approximately 68% of the total variation in sales is explained by selling price, right? And then kita tengok the analysis of variance means the analysis one way ANOVA table. This is to test the significance of regression, whether regression coefficient beta 1 is 0, right? So this is the hypothesis testing. When the null hypothesis beta 1 is equal to 0, the alternative hypothesis beta 1 is not equal to 0, right? So one way ANOVA ni, kita akan tengok kepada significant F. This is your P value, right? So let me tulis dekat sini lah, right? So ini kita nak tengok whether our regression our model is fit for prediction or not fit for prediction. Maksudnya valid for prediction ataupun tak valid untuk prediction. So null hypothesis beta 1 equal to 0. Alternative hypothesis beta 1 is not equal to 0. So alpha is equal to 0.05. Remember the step, yeah? The p value here is very small, right? Which is less than 0.05. So since p value is less than 0.05, null hypothesis is rejected. So what does it mean? It means untuk null hypothesis, the regression, oh sorry, I tulisan tak cantik sekejap. The regression, yes. Ada soalan ke? Is basically it's not valid for prediction. For regression beta H1, the regression model is valid for prediction. So since the p-value is less than 0.05, we reject null hypothesis. Conclusion, the regression model is valid for prediction. Right? Boleh This is the first part. Boleh faham? Ada soalan tak? Ada soalan tak setakat ni? Make sure you understand because next week kita ada test number 2. Right? So now, since the regression model is valid for prediction, so kita akan tengok kepada the third table. The third table, dia akan bagi kita intercept and selling price. So we're going to focus on selling price. We are focusing on selling price. Right? We are focusing on selling price. So dalam selling price ni, kita akan tengok kepada the P value of the selling price. Sepatutnya dia akan sama lah kalau if we only have one variable, then dia akan sama lah. So since the P value, dia punya kita kata macam ni, the null hypothesis null hypothesis, there is no relationship between sales and selling price. So they are measuring on X kan. Our dependent variable is sales. Alternative hypothesis, there is a relationship between sales and selling price. So our alpha is equal to 0.05. The p-value that we have is very small, which is less than 0.05. Since p-value is less than 0.05, null hypothesis is rejected. So since we reject null hypothesis, our conclusion is based on alternative hypothesis. There is a relationship between sales and selling price. Boleh? Boleh cakap tu?
Boleh.
Right. So you need to know this one. Kita masuk dekat sini dia ada menggunakan T value pun sama juga, tapi kita tak tengok T value lah. So the output dia akan bagi dekat kita residual output and probability output. Right. So dekat sini residual versus predicted. So kalau kita nampak dia bentuk macam ni, right? Macam straight line ni, dia ada assumption lah. Linearity assumption is met lah. So kalau kita nampak dia bentuk macam ni, linearity assumption is not met. So kita tengok dekat sini, selling price residual plot. So kita nampak dia lebih kurang macam ni lah. Kecuali ini ada outlier sikit. So the linearity assumption is met lah. And then the normality, kita akan measure normality based on residual, right? So kalau dia straight line menaik macam ni, maksudnya dia normal lah, right? Okay. So that is for simple linear regression. Boleh faham how to interpret? So now we have the equation dekat sini. Mana kita dapat equation? Kita akan tengok equation dekat coefficient. So this one should be represent y equal to 353.57. So minus 11.312 lah x. So this is the equation. Equation ni mesti sama dengan this one lah. Nampak tak? Mesti sama. Right? So sama. So what does it mean? It means that this is A, this is B. Okay? So A means that if selling price is 0, right? Means we don't know the selling price, right? The total sales is 300 RM 353.57 multiply with 1000 lah, right? So basically selling price cannot be 0 lah, right? But this is a logically explanation for the equation. B, the explanation is if selling price increase by RM 1 ringgit, right? The sales will decrease by, macam mana tahu decrease? Sebab dia ada negative sign, right? Decrease by RM 11.312 multiplied with 1,000 ringgit, right? So this is the explanation for B. So let's say if we got this equation, right? Y equal to 353.57 plus 11.312x, right? So the A, explanation A is still same, but for B should be equal to if selling price increase by RM1, right? The sales will increase by RM 11.312 multiplied with 1000, right? So remember the sign is playing the the important role on interpretation, right? So sign increase. Kalau dekat sini negative sign decrease. Boleh? Boleh faham setakat ni?
InsyaAllah doktor.
Boleh So
Boleh.
your task is oops. Your task is to find relationship between sales and advertising expenditure, sales and research development expenditure. Your task is to do that, right? Okay, so now let's look at multiple linear regression. Boleh masuk lagi dalam otak state function? Boleh ya? Ataupun you want 5 minute rest lagi?
5 minit rest.
Rest lagi. Okay, boleh. Okay. This is for multiple linear regression. You just select y and x as x value, we select everything lah, right? And everything semua sama saja, and then click OK. So dia akan bagi kat kita the same table. But now the table is a bit different. Dia ada banyak value lagi. So this one kita akan letak tepi dulu lah, right? Nanti kita akan tengok, right? This chart semua kita letak tepi dulu, nanti kita akan tengok, right? So we are focusing on these three table. Okay, now by looking at this one, the first part, multiple R. So we are not going to look at multiple R anymore. We are focusing on R squared because kita menggunakan multiple linear regression. So R squared here is equal to 0.694, which is equal to 69.46%. So this is R squared. R squared means must be represent in percentage. So what does it mean? There are 69.46% of the total variation in sales are explained by apa? So kita dah tiga kan? Advertising expenditure, selling price and research and development. By advertising expenditure, selling price and R&D expenditure, right? So the balance of berapa balance dia? 100 minus 69.46. 100 minus 69.46 should be equal to 30.50. 30.54% is explained by other variable that not in the model. This is how we explain or interpret the value of R square. Boleh Boleh faham setakat tu? Now, the first part we look at the ANOVA table. ANOVA table, the p-value here is less than 0.05. So what can we say from here? Right, we can say is that null hypothesis, the regression model is not fit for prediction. This is for null hypothesis. Alternative hypothesis, the regression model is fit for prediction. Alpha is equal to 0.05. The p-value here is less than 0.05. So since our decision is, since the p-value is less than 0.05, null hypothesis is rejected. Okay, so the conclusion, we are going to conclude based on the alternative hypothesis, which is the regression model is fit for prediction. Okay, so this is the first part for one-way ANOVA. So for coefficient table, right, this one, we're going to look at the advertising expenditure, selling price, and research and development, right? So we are focusing on the p-value, right? So if you look at this p-value, right, so kita buat one by one. So the first one is advertising expenditure. So null hypothesis, there is no relationship between sales and advertising expenditure, right? Alternative hypothesis, there is a relationship between sales and advertising expenditure, right? So make sure this all step ni ada dalam report, okay? Project report. So alpha is equal to 0.05. P-value for this one is 0.004, which is less than 0.05. So since p-value is less than 0.05, null hypothesis is rejected. So we can conclude that there is a relationship between sales and advertising expenditure. Right, this is the first part. For the second part, which is selling price, sama juga kan? Sebab p-value is less than 0.05. But for the third, last one is research and development R&D. So we can say that the null hypothesis, there is no relationship between sales and R&D expenditure. Alternative hypothesis, there is a relationship between sales and R&D expenditure. So alpha is equal to 0.05. The p-value is 0.051, which is more than 0.05, which is our alpha dekat sini. So since the p-value is more than 0.05, alternative null hypothesis is accepted. Right? So we can conclude that there is no relationship between sales and R&D expenditure. Okay, boleh faham? So for selling price, sama jugalah. Dia sama konsep sebab P-value is less than 0.05. Okay, so all of this must be in your report. Right? Nanti you project report ni, kalau you buat regression, mesti kena ada lah. Right? So at least one descriptive and one inferential. This is inferential. Okay? Boleh faham? Ada soalan tak? Ada soalan tak?
Setakat ni tak ada, Doktor.
Okay, good. So I hope you understand. So we finished chapter number 6 already, right? So since we already finished chapter number 6, on Monday we will have test number 2. The first one is test 1 is in assignment 20%. This test Monday ni consists of 30% marks, right, of your total assessment. Very important. It covers chapter number 5 and chapter number 6. Boleh? So I will open your test number 2 from 27 until 4th July. Boleh?
Doktor, boleh tak kalau kita nak dapatkan yang essay yang doktor dah explain ni?
Oh, nasib baik you beritahu. I tak save lagi. Kejap, I save dulu. Sebab I tak ada save, I tak simpan. Okay, this one I buat conteng lah.
Thank you, Doktor.
Alright. Another one. This is Blue Moon. This is not Blue Moon. It's Sunshine. Sunshine pun I tak save lagi. Conteng.
Doktor, seminar ni dah record kan?
Yes, recorded. But tadi yang first part explanation on multiple tu I tak sempat nak record. This one I tak sempat nak record. But you need to understand lah. Benda konsep yang sama, but it expand to others variable lah. Dia ada banyak variable simultaneously. Right? So the concept are same. Right? But this one I already recorded lah. This one. Right? So okay, this one I also recorded. So dekat sini dia ada beberapa assumption, right? But we are going to dismiss the assumption for now, right? Because I think it's too many lah to advance, right? But just focus on how to interpret the coefficient of determination and how to construct a hypothesis testing for each of the variable and hypothesis testing for one ANOVA. Right? Same goes to simple linear regression. You need to know the same part, which is interpretation of ANOVA, interpretation of Pearson product moment correlation. But you need to be careful because this one dia tak bagi dekat you sign negative or positive. You need to refer back to the scatter diagram. Right, scatter diagram, you need to know how to construct a scatter diagram. I need to know how to interpret the equation here, right? So now, before we end, I lupa nak tunjuk the equation dekat sini. So dekat sini equation dia apa? So kita tengok dekat sini, it should be y equal to 179.95 for advertising expenditure plus, because it's a positive value, 0.2308 x1. X1, this is going to be x1, x2, X3. So the next one, selling price is negative 5.16566 lah, 66 X2. So kita ambil 4 decimal point kan, okay, tak apa, kita ambil 4 decimal point, should be 57 X2, and the last one is plus, because it's our contain no negative point, it's a positive point, so positive sign, okay, so 7 6 4 9 X3, right? So this is how we get the equation for multiple linear regression. The interpretation are same, right? This is A kan, A, this is beta 1, beta 2 and beta 3, right? So if A kat sini apa maksudnya? If all x1, 2 and 3 equal to 0, y is equal to RM179.95 multiply with 1000 lah. 1000 sebab apa? Sebab sales dia multiply with 1000 kan. So for beta 1 is equal to 0.2308, right, for advertising expenditure. If advertising expenditure increase by RM1, advertising expenditure is 1000 kan, B1000 kan, RM1000 lah, RM1000, right? So while others independent variable held constant, right, the sales will increase by RM 0.2308 multiply with 1000, right? Boleh faham So kenapa dia increase? Sebab dia positif, right? So dia increase by 0.2308 multiply 1000, right? So the penambahan dekat sini, while others variable are held constant lah. So kalau lain-lain semua constant, right, constant means 0, so dia akan increase by 0.2308. Same goes to for selling price. Selling price is negative, means they're going to decrease. For R&D, their plus we're going to increase by this value lah. Alright, so I hope you understand. Ada soalan before we end our session? Soalan? I'm waiting for question.
Doktor, tadi yang untuk Sunshine Private tu, doktor suruh buat latihan relation antara sales dengan
advertising expenditure,
research development
sales.
tu nak kena hantar.
Ya.
Yang latihan untuk Sunshine Private tu hantar bila?
Tak payah hantar. Buat sendiri. So you practice by your own.
Oh, just buat exercise je lah.
So you practice lah. So for your understanding, right? So you practice, you buat, and then you try to interpret. You try buat daripada scatter diagram. You buat R square dekat sini, display the equation macam ni, right? So you adjust the scale. Semua tu you practice lah. Okay? And then you try to explain the regression equation, buat dia punya hypothesis for one-way ANOVA table and coefficient. You try to practice before we sit for test, our test on Monday nanti. So remember, test Monday nanti I bagi masa 1 minggu. You hanya boleh buka sekali saja. Once you try to open and you nak tengok soalan, and you kena jawab lah. Kalau you tak jawab, ditutup, then it's considered answered already, right? Rugilah, right? And then
Berapa minit
I think 1 hour should be enough, right? 1 hour, 60 minit.
Berapa soalan?
20 to 30. I not decide yet. Okay. So I give you the minimum lah. So the minimum you got, the difficulty level is quite high lah. So make sure your internet connection is good, your computer, your machine is working well, right? Untuk sebelum you jawab the test lah. Okay? Boleh?
InsyaAllah boleh doktor.
InsyaAllah.
Alright, I think that's all. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.